I'd like to share some reflections tonight on a real pressing problem in our time, and that is the increase in gun violence. We've witnessed a lot of mass shootings lately, Buffalo, down in Texas, and concerns have been raised about the nature of these shootings and what can be done to prevent them. Particularly, people are concerned about mass shootings that involve children in school, and also that are racially motivated, really hate crimes. Um, and these shootings seem to have a common element in that they are dealing with rifles, assault rifles, military style rifles. And the thought is, what can we do to really keep people safe in terms of the gun situation? That certainly is an important consideration. And at the same time, balance our constitutional freedoms that we have in our country, which are enshrined in our Second Amendment, the right of our citizens to bear guns, a very fundamental right. So, how do we balance these two concerns out? On the one hand, there are people that certainly want to restrict certain weapons. There are people that want to do background checks. There are laws that people are proposing with regard to red flags, certain situations where you would want to confiscate a gun because of the potential for harm that that individual could do, because they've shown certain signs that indicate that maybe they're unstable or they're making threatening remarks or threatening posts on social media, this type of thing. So balancing all that out is a very difficult, a very complex process. Certainly, people's freedoms are very important. And of course, there are people in our country who, anytime you talk about a government restriction or government doing something, they're like, we've had enough with the government, and the government is on our business too much. The government is too large. Government is too extensive. Its big brother is watching over us. All of these concerns certainly are raised. And of course, with all of these concerns, we have to listen to them and try to understand them. One of the things that has been demonstrated recently, though, is that when there is a mass shooting and there are many victims, and we just say, well, our prayers and thoughts are with you. We don't want to talk about any possible solutions at this time. We just want to pray for the people. We just want to send them good wishes, send them support, all of which, of course, is very important and very legitimate. But many times people will say, well, you're sending prayers and thoughts, but what are you doing in a preventative mode to make sure that these types of things don't happen again? So, what seems logical here is to look at perhaps other countries that have dealt with this problem, how they have dealt with it, and have they been successful in dealing with this? And then to try to balance those attempts in other countries with our constitutional concerns in this in America, which are, of course, a bit different because of our Constitution and our Second Amendment rights. So balancing all that is significant. But it would seem logical to say that, well, why are there more of these shootings in America? Is there something different about our approach that is allowing for more of these shootings to occur? So, in order to do that, we first have to establish the facts. Are there more shootings per capita in America than in other countries? So, that would be the first element. And unfortunately, the government has not been too good about amassing statistics correctly in this area, and certainly that's something that we really have to work on and do a better job with. And so very important that we take a look at that and that we make sure that we get accurate statistics about the amount of mass shootings in our country, about, of course, number one, what constitutes a mass shooting, how many are involved, and then to kind of parallel that with other countries and to make sure that, we have really accurate comparisons. Other things that we want to take a look at in terms of that are different approaches. So many times what's talked about is, well, there's a mental health issue behind many of these shootings because many of the characteristics that are exhibited by these shooters are really mental health problems that they have. They're, psychological problems. And so what we want to do is we want to take a look at that and we want to make sure that, this isn't the issue. But people say, well, there are other countries, and these other countries as well have mental health issues. They seem to have them to the same degree that America has them. And if there are indeed more shootings in America than these other countries, are there other factors? And is the accessibility to certain weapons, is that a factor? So how do we maybe limit these weapons in some way? How do we prevent people from getting these particular weapons? Military style weapons become a particular concern because even those who are involved with trying to protect us, police personnel, they are very upset with these weapons. And many times it's a question of the police themselves being outgunned because the criminal has a weapon that is superior to their weapon. Sometimes we'll say, well, the answer is to have an armed guard at a door. The door is locked, and the armed guard is there to protect the children, to protect the church, to protect the institution, and that this armed guard will then eliminate the criminal. But if the armed guard is not armed with a superior weapon that this criminal has, that armed guard could be a sitting duck, and even the door being locked, the weapon can blow that door open and a person can get in with these superior weapons. So again, you've got to be careful about who has access to which weapons. Uh, Interesting studies have been done on this topic in terms of what has happened in terms of accessibility to weapons. A 2021 Northwestern medicine study came to the conclusion that the federal assault weapons ban prevented 10 mass shootings in the 10 years it was in effect. If it was still in effect, it could have prevented another 30 public mass shootings that killed 339 people and injured 1,139 more. Now, again, that's one study. It was done in 2021 by Northwestern Medicine, so you might say it's a pretty respectable study. But you'd want to see, well, other studies. You'd want to be careful before you jump to too many conclusions. But certainly, if this was true, it would have prevented. The prevention aspect is the important aspect here. So how do we be preventive? How do we take those steps? That's really a significant thing that we want to look at and we want to establish, really. Uh, some people will argue, well, these types of restrictions in terms of assault weapons, it's not going to stop every mass shooting. And of course, you can acknowledge that. There are some mass shootings that you might not prevent with an assault weapons ban. But the point is this a step in the right direction? Are we helping people by enacting this? Is this something that is beneficial to public safety without being overly restrictive on the rights of those who want to own guns? Part of the problem with gun laws as they exist now is, state to state. So the idea is that, well, you can get the gun in another state. So a state like Illinois and a city like Chicago might have very restrictive measures in place, but then another state, surrounding states like Indiana and Pennsylvania and others, well, the accessibility might be a lot easier so that people can bring those weapons in. So how to get some sort of coherent system in a country as large and diverse as ours is certainly going to be a challenge. Some of the statistics on that really would cause an alarm and cause us to study further and to come up with a better solution is that more than 45,000 people died from gun violence in 2020, last year for which we have stats, and that was a 25% increase from 2015 and a 43% increase from 2010. So we can see an alarming pattern here in terms of this increase. What can we do to prevent it? So I would encourage certainly further study, looking at different options, having a dialogue with both sides on the issue. We certainly want to respect the right of people to own guns. It's a constitutional right. We also want to say, well, what can we do to make our country a safer country, particularly protecting our children, protecting our youth? These are important concerns that certainly we all should